Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're with us in class today. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains, Monday through Friday. And if you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Brad's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. Guineith Isaacs is with us. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you today?
Oh, jeez. Did you just get up? Yeah.
I've just woken up a few moments ago.
Yeah.
So if my voice sounds a bit slurry, that's why I'm still waking up.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks for being with us. And let me open this broadcast with an interesting piece of correspondence I got from an organization, a corporation called the Internal Revenue Service. And so it says, in reply, refer to, and they give us a long number, and they've got the date on it. They've got my Social Security number on it. It's got my, it says Vincent Finelli. It's got my wife's name on it, our address, taxpayer identification, tax period, December 31, 2017. It says Form 1040. This is like a computer-generated letter. And it says, Dear Taxpayer. Now, that's kind of interesting because, when I built computer systems decades ago, I figured out how you could take the inside address and merge that with the word dear and a comma. So I could say dear instead of taxpayer, Dear Vincent Finelli. But I guess they haven't figured out how to do that.
I knew how to do that 20 years ago.
Oh, easily.
But
anyway.
Easy. Just a merge form.
Yeah, actually, 40 years ago we were doing that stuff. So anyway, it says, Dear Taxpayer, we received one of the following items from you or your authorized third party. And it has the date that they received it. And it says, correspondence, they received one of the following. Correspondence or a telephone inquiry or a payment or a form or a response to our inquiry or notice, a penalty abatement request, an installment agreement or other. It goes on to say, we're working on your account. However, we need an additional 60 days to send you a complete response on what action we are taking on your account. We don't need any further information from you right now. If you have questions, you can call us toll free and they give the number. If you prefer, you can write at the address on the top of the page. And then, thank you for your cooperation. And then on the next page, it just has my address again.
What was the point of that letter?
Well, I think it's because I don't use their forms. And what I do, when I send in an estimated tax payment, I take I get on the keyboard, I pull up a form that I generated. It's not really a form, it's really just a letter. And it's very brief. And it just says their address, our address. Here is my estimated tax payment for the period of Social Security number. Thank you very much. And I send it off. Well, with the check number, the amount of the check and the check number. And I send that off. Now, it does not have things like under penalty of perjury, because that's so much typing, and I'm really kind of lazy, so I don't type that in. I just keep it really simple. And I don't like their form, so my form has way fewer words, way fewer. And it doesn't say anything about perjury in my form, like theirs does. So I think because I sent in an estimated tax payment, that's voluntary, and I'm willing to volunteer. I want to pay as little tax as possible. And I work very hard to pay as little as possible. And, Donald Trump does the same thing. So when you do that, you get letters from them, and this is just the latest letter. And it takes 60 days for them to figure out what I have done. That's what this. So here's go ahead.
It doesn't fit with what they learned in bureaucrat school.
Yeah. Did you say bureau rat or did you say bureaucrat? Either one.
Whichever version suits you best.
yeah, bureau rat. So, class, here's the whole point. Now, you don't have to do this. I do it. I'm not recommending you do or not do anything. But I'm saying that what Vinny does is Vinny does not like to use their forms. And because it's a voluntary tax system, I'm not volunteering to use their form. I'm not going to do it. Because I don't want to make a mistake and have them say that I perjured myself. Now, I will say that I am not lying, I am not misrepresenting, and I'm not doing anything that I cannot substantiate. I can substantiate everything. I can prove everything that I do, and why, according to their rules. However, I am not willing to say that, hey, you guys can come attack me if I make a mistake, or you think I make a mistake. So I'm not willing to do that. Seriously, I won't do it. So there you have it. And, when I sign these contracts that, let's say I'm agreeing to do something, and it says standard contract on the top. I'm not just talking about the IRS. I'm talking about, just an agreement, with a big corporation. And it says, we have the right to sue you and be compensated for our legal fees plus interest plus. That's the part I cross out. And I put my initials on it. I cross out because I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing. If something goes wrong and they want to come after me, I'm not going to say, sure, hey, listen, that's great. I agree. Come after me and really stick it to me. Go ahead. That would be fine with me. Of course I wouldn't agree to that. So what I do is I literally cross it out so it's clear for everybody to see, and I put my initials on it. Now, one thing that I do is I read the contracts because they have lots of fine print. And they don't call it fine print for no reason. They call it fine print because that's where the hidden gotchas are. That's where they come and get you. So you have to read every word. So, and it's really funny because when someone puts one of those things in front of me and says, okay, sign here, I go, okay, let me read it. Boy, it's really taking you a long time. Well, you got a lot of words on this page. And some of them are above the 12th grade level. So, I really have to think about every word that's on this page. Now, if you'd make it simpler, fewer words, and clearer to understand, it wouldn't take me so long. So it's not my fault. You guys come up with this contract. You guys want me to sign it, and I'm willing to read it, but I'm not willing to sign it until I read it and fully understand it. And that is something that I would like our Congress thugs and parasites to do. I would like a bill to be introduced at every government level, every government corporation level that says anyone who alleges to represent our interests, who votes on a bill to become law, must read it and fully understand it. And if he does not or she does not, they are subject to an imprisonment of 10 years, not less than 10 years in prison. If
they haven't written it, then somebody else has written it, and what is it doing in front of Congress?
Right. Well, that's a very good point, and you're absolutely right. They don't write it. Lobby thugs write those bills. And they make them very, very complicated. And, isn't it interesting how companies who do very complicated transactions seem to do well, and companies who do business in simple terms don't do as well? So it seems to me that there are hurdles that are put in front of us as barriers to entry to keep the little guy from doing well. Let me give you an example. That is the sound of an envelope that was sent to me, and UPS, United Parcel Service, second day air. Okay, so I bought 2 items, and the 2 items that I bought were memory sticks. Some people call them thumb drives. Some people call them USB drives. I bought 2 of them, and I bought them from Walmart, and they were $8.99 each. Okay, plus tax. Now, it was less expensive for me to order them on the internet and pick them up at the store than it was for me to just go to the store and pick them up off the rack. So I got on the internet and I ordered them, 232 gigabyte USB sticks, $8.99 each. Well, they put it in this padded envelope. They sent it from Walmart headquarters to the local store in Missouri. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 labels on it. They're large labels. These 7 labels cover probably 60% of the surface area of the front and the back of this padded 9 by 12 envelope. They paid for shipping on it. They shipped it to the store. It was handled, and handled again. And the whole bill was $9 plus $9 plus tax. Now, the point is, how can they do that? And pay for second-day air shipping. How can they do that? Because it costs more in the store than it does to buy it online and pick it up at the store. I'm talking about the same store. So if you go to Walmart and you pick it up off the shelf, it'll cost more than if you get on the internet, order it, have it shipped to the store, and then go pick it up at the back of the store. So it costs less.
Crazy.
Yes, it costs less with the added materials of shipping, handling, packing, and postage fees. How is that possible? We come back, I've got another story about a cast iron skillet I bought on Amazon. How is that possible? When I tell you the story, you won't believe it. I'm going to go weigh it during this commercial break and see how much it weighs. I'll be right back. Guineith will be right back. This is USA Prepares. Class Guineith Isaacs is with us. And I'm talking about the little guy and how it's darn near impossible to compete in business today. So I wanted to buy a cast iron skillet, one with raised ribs on the bottom of it. And I wanted to get one that was made in the United States. I didn't want one that was made in China, because I don't know what they would use as the ingredients for the cast iron. You know, was it used ships, engine blocks, radioactive waste containers? I don't know. So I didn't want one of those. I'm kind of in the belief that maybe the ones made in USA might be a little bit safer, but I'm not sure of that either. So I bought one, a Lodge brand, and it's manufactured in the United States, allegedly. At least that's what they claim. And I just weighed it. This skillet I bought recently weighs 7 pounds. That's without the box. That's just a skillet. Now, when I bought it, it came shipped in a box. It had padding. It was handled, meaning the people that sent it to me had to actually get it off the shelf, put a label on it, get it ready for shipping, and it was shipped. Now, how much did that cost? This 7-pound skillet. Shipping, padding, box, handling, labels, document inside that said thanks very much, and the skillet, $14.88. That was tax exempt. That was, yeah. How is that possible? How is that possible that they could do that? Well, Amazon can do that because they've negotiated
they
these.
They get a rebate for every item they ship.
Yeah. Now, Guineith, I couldn't ship this across the road for $14.88. There's no way. It just weighs so much. The bottom line is it's not a level playing field. We can't do that. We don't get these deals on shipping. I shop to my advantage. I try to buy where things will cost me the least amount and one main ingredient in when I spend money is, am I going to have to pay sales tax? And I try my best. I go out of my way. I go above and beyond to avoid paying tax to the state of Missouri for many reasons. One, it's a criminal enterprise. Two, they'll waste it. And three, they charge way too much. I think 8% is out of sight. Way too much sales tax. What do they need it for?
Hey, here's an idea.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how many of the people who go shopping in the Mall of America are good little taxpayers.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen any photos of the Mall of America lately? That's in Missouri, isn't it?
Yeah, you're talking about
in Minnesota next door.
You're talking about malls in general closing up?
No, I'm talking about the fact that they all seem to follow one particular religion and that it's imported. And if you look on the internet of photos of the Mall of America, it's in St. Paul. So actually it's next door in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's a really, really big shopping mall. It's one of the few surviving, thriving malls that's left in the United States. And it's full of burqa wearers. And one thing about their religion is their religion forbids them from paying tax to us. So none of them pay tax. And the government lets them not pay tax. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
No, I did. So wait. So are you saying that if I went to the mall and I said, listen, see this burqa? We're not paying tax. I could get away with it?
Yeah. They would not, and if they charged you sales tax, like I say, I think this is actually in Minnesota next door, so because it's in Minneapolis apparently, but that's, if they don't pay tax, they don't follow our marriage laws. Here in Australia, that the Muslim men quite openly walk around with 3 and 4 wives trailing along behind them.
No, wait, what's so bad about that?
Well, the thing is, if your average Western man walked around with 3 or 4 wives trailing along behind him, he'd be warming a jail cell before he could sneeze.
I thought, well, that's why I got the Book of Mormon, so I could...
Yeah, they give the Mormons a hard time for that too, don't they?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Of course I'm kidding. Of course I'm kidding,
We're
class.
going to have the same rules for people.
So, class, I've got a magazine in front of me. It's sent out every month by the Electric Cooperative, the same electric cooperative that I ran for the board of directors for. And it's called Missouri, Rural Missouri. Comes out once a month, and it's called the Laclede Electric Cooperative Edition, February 2018. So I open it up, and here's the cooperative news from Laclede Electric Cooperative. And there's a picture of the Mark Rocker. He's the CEO and general manager. I know Mark Rocker. He's the guy that brought me into the boardroom and explained how things work. Like, he explained to me that, should some miracle happen and you become selected for the board of directors, you will agree not to disclose what happens in the boardroom. And if you disagree with the vote, you're just going to have to go along with what those voting members in majority agree to. So even if you think it's nuts, you're going to have to say, no, I really, we talked about it, and so I'm supporting it. And I can't say, even though I think it's nuts. Okay? So that, I know Mark Rocker. Anyway, here's the cooperative news, February 2018, and it says rate adjustment plan for April. April 2018. Goes on to say, in late 2017, Laclede Electric Cooperative completed a comprehensive 2018 budget. After initial projections of income and expenses didn't allow the cooperative to meet its financial targets and obligations, each department was directed to identify and postpone expenditures that would not reduce reliability, quality of service, and programs that members have come to expect. Through this process, significant expenses were trimmed from the initial 2018 budget. Rest assured that the cooperative will complete all operational projects necessary to continue our mission of providing safe and reliable electric service. The critical operational projects such as pole inspection and replacements, right-of-way clearing, and line upgrades will continue as planned. After carefully analyzing the new projects, it's necessary for the cooperative to adjust our pricing structure to ensure the ability to meet the financial targets and obligations and adequately recover the costs of providing electric service to each rate classification. That is a convoluted way of saying it's going to cost more for electricity. So now, and I ran on the platform of lower electric bills, okay? And I lost.
Oh, dear. Mm-hmm.
I lost twice. Well, now, I was on stage in August, late August. Well, they raised rates 7 times in 14 years. Okay? So between August and today, they're raising the rates again.
Oh, my.
So it was $18 for the pleasure of having an electric meter to tell them how much electricity you used. They used to be free. Okay. Then they started charging for electric meters, and they were $18. Then they raised them to $24, and now the new improved rate to have your smart meter, which was not going to cost anything extra, is now $27 per meter. $27 a month for
That's
the
a
meter.
month?
A month, $27 a month. Now, that's to have the meter.
How long do these meters last for?
Well, you know, the old ones would last 30, 40 years. The new ones, they think they're going to last about 10 years.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah, so what they're doing is they're recovering the cost. Now, the reason I mentioned, Mark Rocker, the CEO and general manager, well, he used to be and still is an accountant. So when the last CEO vacated his position, they replaced a businessman with an accountant. So this guy really knows numbers, and he's running the business by the numbers. Now, my experience tells me that people who run businesses by the numbers and not by, products and services and, building a better mousetrap, in the long run, they don't do very well.
Yeah.
You really need to take care of your customers. So what these guys have been doing, the board of directors has been, they're predators. There's no place to go except build your own power system. And I got to tell you, class, it's darn expensive. You want to build a solar array, that's great when the sun's shining, but the sun's not always shining. And sometimes it's dark. So then you need a battery bank, to store the electricity that you generate on sunny days. But if you have a string of non-sunny days, then you need a generator. Okay, so now you got solar panels, you got a battery bank, you got a generator, but then you find out how expensive the generator is to run. Okay, and there's a lot of wear and tear on the generators, and they don't last forever either. So then you say, well, let me get a wind turbine. Then you find out that you've got to stick that thing 40 feet in the air. And then that needs maintenance too. So every 3 years or so, you got to take that thing down. Really? How do you do that? How do you take something that weighs... Yeah, how do you take something down that's 40 feet in the air that weighs 50 pounds if you have a little one?
And
how do you do that?
has a spinning propeller on it.
Yeah, and you're slicing and dicing birds and, yeah. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. We have a wind turbine here as a backup, and it puts a little bit of electricity extra into the batteries, but actually not that much extra. It runs at about 500 watts. So it goes from being and it's intermittent because we live in a eucalyptus forest, and so the wind is quite seriously buffered by the surrounding trees, and the surrounding trees are maybe up to 100 feet tall, and I'm not really into putting that sort of, you just, most of the trees are about 50-something feet tall. They're really quite substantial, big old trees. And, but the thing is that it's on its tower where it is, and the wind, when it blows through, is intermittent. And if it gets a gust, then it goes, and it'll go for maybe 30 seconds at a time, and then it'll slow off, because when you get a buffered wind, that's how buffered winds are. They go from being constant to, here's a gust, and then there's a gust over there, and then there's another gust over there, which is how the wind usually blows through a forest. And that's the whole point of having a forest, is that if you want to live in a forest, the wind blows in a different way through a forest than what it does if you're on a flat plain. It's better, it's easier to deal with, because you don't feel like if you need to walk from one end of the farm to the other, and it's a really strong windy day. If you've got no buffering on the wind, you're walking upwind all the time, okay? But if you're walking through a buffered wind, you get a gust of wind, and then, it's much stiller air, and then you walk on a bit more, and then there's another gust of wind, and then there's, stiller air and all that sort of thing. It's a much, it's actually a much better way to be. The air sort of gets, stirred up a bit more, rather than just going from here to there.
Mm-hmm. I was doing some research on wind turbines, and I found some videos, and some of the videos are people defending from angry customers. It's like, what do these people expect? And I'm paraphrasing, not quite accurately, but what do these people expect? They buy a wind turbine, and they put it, near a building. Well, it won't work. And so I have a feeling that there are a lot of very, very disappointed customers, and I have a feeling that the reason for that is the people that sell them don't say things like, I'll tell you what, before we start this conversation, if you don't have a way of putting this thing 45 or 40 feet in the air, and if you don't have an open area that's not protected from the wind, it's not going to work. So let's save everybody a lot of time. I don't think they do that. I think they say, well, you can try it, and you might be successful. And I have a feeling that there's a lot of customers.
You don't have them near buildings, because the building acts as a barrier to wind, or it creates turbulence, which makes an irregular wind flow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of people who are thinking,
if you live on a cliff face near the sea or something, the wind's going to be blowing more or less all the time, and you're set.
Mm-hmm.
That's often why you'll find that big wind farms are located in such places.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you saying that you get 500 watts? Is that during 500 watts at a time for a short gust, or are you saying 500 watts a day? What are you saying?
It's 500 watts, watt hours for, but that's only generated for the small, 30 seconds of time when it catches a gust.
Okay.
So it'll be a windy day, and you'll hear it revving up. It'll take probably 30 seconds to rev up into a full gust, 30 seconds to be the body of the full gust when it's generating at 500 watts. So that's like the reverse of, let's say, a 500-watt electric motor. Okay. So instead of using 500 watts, like if you were using a 500-watt drill or whatever, it's generating that amount of electricity. So, but like I say, it takes about 30 seconds to wind up into that gust, 30 seconds for the gust to actually blow when it's actually generating the electricity, and then it will take about 30 seconds to slow down, and then it will be spinning slowly for, maybe 3 to 5 minutes until it hits the next gust. And that's on a windy day. And if it's not a really windy day, it sits there. It does nothing.
Right. And from what I've learned is that you need at least a 20-mile-an-hour wind to generate any amount of electricity that is really worth paying attention to. And how often do we have those kinds of winds? Yeah. So, would you say that it's something that you just might want to forget about, or do you think it's worth pursuing?
Well, our particular wind generator came
Hold that thought. Let's talk about it when we come. We'll talk about it when we come back. Guineith Isaacs is with us, and she's live in Australia. Guineith lives off-grid. She's got a farm in Australia, and she's got some solar panels and a battery bank. She has nickel iron batteries, the same kind we do. And Guineith, during the break, I ran down to check the amount of harvest, if you will, or power generation that the solar panels were making. And at that moment, when I checked, they were 3,458 watts. And so I think I would be generating about that much for about 5 hours, because it's nice and sunny today. Yeah. But if you were to compare that to your wind turbine, how does that compare? So what I'm saying is 3,458 watts times 5 hours. That's probably what we're going to generate today. How would your wind turbine compare to that?
Well, you would probably, get that 500 watts, and you would have to sit there with a stopwatch for an hour on a windy day and just actually measure what amount of time that turbine was actually charging the battery. And like I say, I've actually sat there in the past and just watched it for about an hour or so, just to see, what its cycle was. And it tends to be 3 to 5 minutes, of just very little action or spinning slowly, which doesn't really put much charge into the generator at all, into the battery at all. And then it'll wind up, and you'll sort of hear the wind blowing through the trees. You'll know that gust is coming, because you'll hear it coming from up in the forest. It just blows through, and all the leaves go shh, and you'll hear it. And then you'll hear the wind turbine start to wind up like, and you'll think, oh, that's good. And so you would have to sit there and take about 30 seconds to wind up, about 30 seconds of full spinning time, or maybe a minute of full spinning time, and then it takes maybe 30 seconds or a minute to wind down. So, that whole cycle, let's say 5 minutes, between gusts, and let's say, 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So that's 8 minutes for each cycle, let's say, And you might get, 6 or 7 cycles in an hour, full cycles, where it's actually running. So you'd probably get maybe at the most about 6 or 7 minutes of full charging in an hour. But that might equal to like 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes of full charging in an hour. You've got to sit down and actually work this out. Now with us, it was a used solar power system. And the people that we bought it off were actually going on the grid. And so they had this solar power system in parts, and I had to put it together. And the wind turbine came as, put in with the solar power. So I didn't actually pay anything for it. So I thought, I might as well set this up too. So here we go. And, but it's something where, would I have bought one off the shelf? Well, knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't have. But if I had seen it in my local electronic supply store, I might have gone, oh, new toy. And it might just have gone in the shopping trolley. and come home with me and been set up. And then I would have thought afterwards, well, gosh, I'm only getting about 5, and then you divide that 5 by 60, that's probably only about 50 watts or whatever. It's actually not that much. But we live in a forest.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people live where there are houses, trees, buildings, water towers, all kinds of obstructions to the wind.
Yeah.
Well, when we come back, you've got something on your agenda. What would you like to talk about?
I would like to talk about our infrastructure.
Okay, infrastructure.
And how
it's crumbling.
It's breaking down.
Yeah, it's crumbling.
And nobody
we'll be right
seems
back.
to care.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Guineith Isaacs is with us. And Guineith, I got an email from you telling me that one of our class members, a guy by the name of Bruce, who lives in Hawaii, contacted you because I mentioned that I could not get a calf bolus anywhere that I could find in the United States. And so he contacted you from Hawaii, and you're in Australia, to let you know that he found some, and he actually bought them. And what I didn't say was it had to be a very specific kind called Sustain 3, which would counteract the E. coli problem that calves get. What happens is the mama calves lie down in the grass. They pick up E. coli on their udders. The new calves nurse on the udders that have E. coli on them, and next thing you know, the calves have diarrhea and they can die from it. So that particular kind of bolus is not available. And Bruce didn't have all the information. I didn't give out all the information. You can get cow boluses. They're available right now, but not for calves, called Sustain 3. SUSTAINIII. So I had a nice chat with Bruce. I called him up, and we talked, and unfortunately what he was able to get was not the kind we need, and he's able to return it. But what I want to say is thank you so much. That was very kind of those who tried to help us with calf boluses. Very, very nice, right?
Yeah, I have no idea what calf bolus is. I think, is it a type of colostrum?
No, what it is, it's a way of treating diarrhea. It's a large caplet, very large. It's about the size of half of your finger, and you insert it down the calf's throat with I'll call it a stick. It's actually a plastic wand with the end that you hold with your hand has like a plunger, and you push it, and it releases from the grip of this wand the bolus down the calf's throat, because you can't get a calf to eat medicine unless it's through a nipple in a bottle. But and it works great, but it's not in production anymore, and everybody's out of them. The veterinarians don't have them. Nobody has them, I believe, worldwide. So I'm thinking that there's got to be a reason for this, and it can't be that they couldn't sell them, because they are really popular with farmers. Yes, and I have a feeling that maybe our government said, you know what, these things are so dangerous. Maybe they're being used in the manufacturing of some drug that the government calls illegal. I don't really know what the reason is. I'm just hypothesizing that maybe that's what it is. Or maybe the government said, well, you know what, these things can catch on fire if they're in a box and they're shipped, so we can't ship them anymore. Or maybe they're used for reloading, or I don't know what. But I have a feeling that our government has done something to stop the manufacturing process of these calf boluses, which is going to cause more calves to die, which is going to further exacerbate the problem of our food supply.
Cattle farmers running an economical business.
It's darn near impossible right now. It really is. We have had a rash of calves die. Unbelievable. We are up. Yesterday was the latest one. We called the vet. Our son, my wife, were out there. The calf was breech. It was backwards. And when you pull a calf out You have to help the mama cow, tranquilize the mama so she'll not be racing away from you because she's afraid. You know, a first-time mama cow really doesn't know what's going on. So you tranquilize her to get her to lie down, and then you pull the calf out. But when you pull it out backwards, it's really rough on the internal organs. They're not made to go up backwards, and it damages the lungs and internal organs, and they almost always die. And ours lived we got him into the kitchen, put him in a dog cage, a very, very large dog cage. Everything was good, and he died. So that happens, and the veterinarian said that, you know, sometimes you go a year and you don't have any. Another time, you know, next year you might have one. And then next year you might have all the calves die. And it seems like that's our year right now. We're up to number 16. And it's absolutely gut-wrenching, heartbreaking to see this. And, you know, but that's the kind of thing that's going on. Now, could we have prevented this calf from being breached? I don't think so.
No, it happens that way sometimes. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've never had anything to do with cattle, but we've had the occasional litter of puppies get born around here. And, you know, when they're born, they generally get sold, and that helps to pay for the dog food. So we don't actually make any money from that. But, you know, I reason, well, the puppies are going to people who are going to love them, and they're going to have happy lives, so I'm okay with that. But you know what? You've got to pay attention when it's giving birth time, and you know, because if there's any number of things that can go wrong, and you've got to just make sure that everything is okay. Yeah.
You know, that's a really good point, and we check our cows 3 times a day. Now, the only thing that we could do to spend more time with them is just live out in a tent, I guess, out in the field. But we literally are out there 3 times a day for an hour and a half at a time. That's way more than most farmers spend with their cows. But you know, maybe someday I'll put a video out. I looked at one that our son took yesterday of feeding time, and he was feeding the cows, and he was in the tractor, and he was unrolling hay, and the cows came over, and then the calves, you know, raced over, and it was really a, you know, very wonderful sight. The only problem is it's like 30 meg of data, and so that's a lot to send. But I'd like to put it on the internet so people could see kind of what this is like. It's farming is you know, at times it's gut-wrenching, it's heartbreaking, it's fraught with problems. You know, it's not like going to work and having you know, at the office and having a hard day. It's not like that. It's cold, it's windy, it's rainy, it's snowy, it's icy, and then it's hot, and you know,
and
you're
dry
always
and
fighting.
Dusty, and don't get dry and dusty.
Right. And I was reading an article
and
about...
you're worrying about if something goes wrong with one of the animals, if they begin to... I don't know if you have a problem with bloat where you are.
Not really. We don't.
That can be a problem with the cattle farmers in a lot of places, especially where they have a lot of nitrogenous plants growing in their pasture. And the new growth comes in spring, and the cows can just blow up and die.
Yeah, well, that can happen if they eat too much clover. Yeah, you're right. So we're very careful on... we try to protect our cows as best we can, but we've got to find even better ways. We really do. And, you know, when I'm probably the only guy who's a cattle farmer who will talk about cows dying, because when our listeners listen to this, they're probably saying, oh, man, you know, Finelli's not doing a good job at all. Well, I'm trying to let people know that that bacteria is now coming from the sky. It literally is coming from the sky. There's a report on the internet. I didn't fully read it, But scientists are saying, wow, this is unbelievable. Bacteria is floating around. It's coming from other countries. It's airborne. So things that are happening in other countries are landing in your country. And we're getting sick. And maybe that's the new pandemic.
It's coming from the chemtrails.
I believe it. I absolutely believe it. And, I've been fighting this literally with my own health for a couple of years now. And it's, believe me, it is absolutely no fun. No fun at all. I've limited the amount of time that I spend on the phone with people because I just flat out can't do it. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine running out of talking power? I mean, really? Well, it's true. It's absolutely true. And the sad thing is there are people around here who I know that are dying and have died from what I believe is the same thing. So I'm doing a lot of things that they're not doing, like colloidal silver, like oil of oregano. I'm even going to try colostrum. I'm even going to try taking cow colostrum to see if I can
I think
fend
you'll
off.
find that really, really benefits you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because when we were, a number of years ago, when we had a few goats in the suburbs, my son, one of my sons, my younger son, the neighbour sprayed his yard with Roundup.
Mm-hmm.
And my son was playing in our front yard, and I was, sitting in the lounge room, and I actually saw this, and I saw him go over to the fence, and it was too late by the time I'd seen him do this. The neighbour's dog had been rolling around in the Roundup sprayed grass. The contractor who came to spray the grass had just left. The dog went and rolled on the grass, and my son went across to the fence. He knew the dog. He called the dog across and gave it a pat. And because he was a little kid, of course, he put his hand in his mouth.
Oh,
and
wow.
It all happened so quickly. This happened in a time space. I was not able to get up off the sofa, run out the door, and down to the gate and just say no in time to stop this. And he was coughing almost non-stop, day and night for 6 months. And the only thing that brought him right again was raw goat's milk, freshly milked from our own goats, including goat colostrum.
Let's talk more about this when we come back. Gwyneth Isaacs.
Yep.
So, Gwyneth, you gave your son goat's milk.
Yes.
Please tell us more about that.
I tried everything to get rid of this cough, and it was a hacking cough, and it was day and night. And the only thing that worked, I tried just about every cough mixture you could possibly imagine, and the only thing that worked, actually it was a combination of things. It was goat's milk, including, I had a goat that gave birth, and when I have a goat that gives birth, what I do is I milk out the colostrum once a day. Okay, so the goat gets a chance to make the colostrum for its baby to drink, and then I milk the colostrum out, and if I have a freezer, I store it in the freezer. At that time, we were living on the grid, so we did have a freezer. These days, if I had goats, I probably wouldn't bother because we don't have a freezer at the moment. But, yeah, I found out that the children were going into the freezer and were helping themselves to the ice blocks of goat colostrum. And at the time I said, boys, you really shouldn't do that. But in hindsight, I can see that something in them told them that they needed this. Okay? You know, when you're a kid, if there's a particular, or even when you're a big person, if you feel that there's a particular nutritional lack, you'll begin to crave a certain type of food. Like if you're not getting enough protein, you'll begin to crave meat, or you'll begin to crave cheese or milk or eggs. or something like that. And it's a really, really good idea if you're a big person, unless, like you're craving McDonald's or something, you shouldn't fulfill that craving. But the craving reflex is there for a reason. And my sons had begun to crave these little ice blocks, which were goat colostrum, that I'd put in the freezer. And I was also giving him goat's milk, probably at least once, twice, 3 times a day, just a cup of goat's milk. And that and a humidifier at night, in combination, managed to fix this terrible, terrible, irritation in his lungs. But that affected his health. He was a sickly child. It's like anything that would come by, he would get it for years afterwards. And I thank God in heaven above that his health has improved in the last few years since we've been out here. And he's actually beginning to look really, really good now. But for many years, if there was any bug, any cold, any flu that was going around, you could be sure someone would sneeze on him and he'd catch it. And he would stay sick for a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks. And it's because of that tiny, tiny window of time. I'm talking about a matter of seconds of where the dog rolled in the grass. He saw the dog, he called it over, put his hand through the fence, patted it, put his hand in his mouth. The whole thing would not have taken more than about 10 seconds, and it was, I couldn't get out there quickly enough to stop it at the time. And
I had a friend.
I think that whoever invented that bloomin' chemical, Roundup, I don't think I could say on air what ought to be done to them, because it's generated so much harm. That's one small example. One child whose health was ruined for years because of that. Just a few seconds. Just a few seconds. And just a tiny, tiny amount of contamination. And it just absolutely destroyed his health for years. But like I say, he's going to be fine. And his health, he's so much better now than he was. But it was goat's milk and goat colostrum and a humidifier were the keys to getting his health back.
When we come back, I'll tell you a story about Roundup and one of my friends, and he died. We'll be right back with Guineith Isaacs. Guineith, you were interested in getting your hands on the guy who, I guess, developed Roundup. Is that what you said?
Oh, something like that.
Okay. Well, I met a guy close to that.
Damage to my son.
All right. Well, I met a guy who is involved in this. His name is Roy Blunt. Roy, R-O-Y, last name B-L-U-N-T. The senator from Missouri, U.S. senator. And I'm going to read you an article. I met this guy at an airport hangar. He flew in with Wayne LaPierre, who was at the helm of a gun lobby, the NRA.
Yeah.
So here's the article. It was on grist.org, April 4, 2013. It goes on to say, after much hemming, hawing, and hulking, some crack reporters have solved the case of the Monsanto rider, the new law that gives GMO crops legal immunity. It was Senator Roy Blunt, Republican, Missouri, in the boardroom with the inappropriate relationships with big ag lobbyists. Politico first broke the Blunt story. Just how cozy the Missouri senator is with the GMO giant who he worked with to write and pass the rider. If Senator Blunt continues carrying Monsanto's water in the Senate, the company will have gained the allegiance of a wily and proven political operator. That is the government / Monsanto connection. Roy Blunt. I met him, and I'll tell you what, I was, you see these people, and they hug and kiss babies and all that kind of stuff. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. These people are out for themselves. They're weak. They will sell you out. They'll sell out their wives and children for their own personal pleasure. Now, that's my opinion. Okay, so if you type, if you go to a search engine, you type Roy Blunt, B-L-U-N-T, okay, you'll get a result that says www.blunt.senate.gov, okay? And it goes on to say, as a father of 4 and grandfather of 6, Senator Blunt strongly shares Missourians' family values. He believes everyone should have the opportunity to succeed, is a strong supporter of the right to life, and supports pro-growth economic energy and regulatory policies that will encourage the creation of more good paying. And then it goes on. I can't see the rest of it at this point.
Oh, my gosh.
Sounds like he's our guy. Sounds like
he needs, he's saying what he thinks that people want to hear. He is 100% politician. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about your children. Right. If I met him, I would say, see this boy, he looks like a big, strong, healthy boy, doesn't he? You should have seen him 6 and 7 years ago when he is coughing his lungs out day and night, every single day for 6 months, and that for years and years and years and years after that, that every time a cold or a flu or a bug or whatever came through, that he would catch it, for sure. And it's quite interesting because even last year, this boy, he missed a huge amount of school through just, colds and flus, whatever was going around, he would catch it, and I would keep him at home because he'd be coughing, and that was just this last year. And it got to the point he missed so much school that the school sent the child protection. And, my other son was having other health issues as well. He went to the school nurse, and I think that probably played into it. And the fact that we might have had a big fat target painted on our back somehow might have played into it too. Anyway, that the school ended up authorizing child protection to interview my children without my knowledge or consent. And, I found out about that, and I basically was not a happy camper about it. And so I filed affidavits against the Child Protection Department, and I filed affidavits against the school, and that's why he's now being homeschooled.
Good for you. Good for you. Good for you.
I don't have to put up with that. They didn't know the backstory. I'm sure I'd never told the school. I don't think I did ever tell the school about what had happened with him touching the dog that had been rolling in the Roundup sprayed grass, yada, 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 and about how he had been, it really, really seriously affected his health. And, but that was just a completely over-the-top reaction. And, I don't have to put up with that. Neither does anybody out there. And I filed affidavits against them basically saying, if you continue to come after us, you are going to get sued because there are grounds for damages here. And it was their action years and years ago that's resulted in the problems that my son's been having, that they're more or less under control now, but he was beginning to experience health issues from the impact that they had had on our family many years before. And I was able to go and prove that through some really significant research studies that have been, through Ivy League universities and such and so forth. But if you stand up against these people, if you stand your ground, ultimately you don't have to consent to contract with them. They have to back down. You're not their slave, okay? And you've got to understand, these people are not on your side. They want to hurt you, and they want to hurt your family. And if you don't stand up for your land and your family, you are going to lose them against these people. You need to stand up for your freehold allodial property rights. If you're in the United States, that's something that has to be won back here in Australia into the future. But you need to retain your right to bear arms in the United States. You need to, you need to stand against the child protection people. You need to homeschool your children, because if you don't, you're going to lose your rights over your own children to raise them as you see fit. And, you're going to lose your land if you don't stand up for your freehold allodial rights. And that includes, standing against their right, so-called, which is not a right at all because they're a private corporation. They charge you property taxes. That's contract without consent. And when they come at you with the property tax thing, you need to come at them with UCC 1/308, which means all rights reserved, including the right for you to live on your own land and build any structure you feel like and manage your land as you see fit. And dig a mine. If you've got minerals on your land, go and dig a mine. Don't ask their permission. Just be responsible about it and don't poison the groundwater or anything like that. But you don't want to do that because it's your land, and you don't want to do that because you've got a neighbour who's downstream of you. You don't want to poison the water course. That's what they do.
Right.
Not
Guineith,
what we do.
I've got a couple comments for you about this. Actions that I've taken. So, class, you've heard Guineith say these things, and you're probably wondering, can you really do that? Can you really?
Yeah.
Can you really say no? Well, of course you can. And I've said it many times, and I'm going to say again some of the things that I do that is against the wishes of the other team. And I said it today. I read the letter from the IRS. The IRS is it's going to take them 60 days to figure out what in the heck I've done. Well, I made up my own form. It's not a form, actually. It's a letter. I sent them a letter. They want me to use their form, and I say no. I didn't quite say no. What I did was I responded with my own form. I've been threatened by the state of Missouri Corporation. They wanted to steal our farm. They wanted to put liens against our property, and I came out swinging. I said no. You thugs aren't going to do it. You parasites aren't going to do it. I named their names. Okay, so some of you may think I get away with it because I have a radio show. No, I've been doing this for a long time. When I go into Lowe's or a store and I use my credit card and they say ID, need to see an ID. And I ask them why. And they can't tell. Well, for your own protection. Well, I don't need protection. I'm okay. Let's just go with the transaction. No, I need to see your ID. And then I tell them no. No, you have a choice. You can put all the stuff back or you can let the transaction go through. Pick one. It's okay with me if you want to put it all back, go ahead. But I'm not going to give you an ID to buy a gallon of paint. I'm not going to do it. And when I get stopped by the police,
ID to buy a gallon of paint?
Well, yeah, at Lowe's, they
want that?
Yeah. Well, to protect me from myself. They want to make sure I am me. Literally, they want to make sure that's my credit card. And they'll say, well, this just protect you. Okay, so you don't think it's me? Well, no, I think it's you. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, I just need to see an ID. You don't think it's me? No, I think it's you.
We're landed in some parallel universe.
Yeah, well, I don't do it. I will not show my ID to buy something. I will not do it. I'm not a criminal. We'll be right back.
Yep.
If you'd like to find out more about Guineith Isaacs, you can just go to USA Prepares and click on the Instructors tab. You'll find the link, and that'll take you right to her Facebook page. Guineith, I have a couple quick comments before you tell us about infrastructure in the last segment that we're in right now. Homeschooling. So when we wanted to homeschool our children, it was really simple. We told the school system we were going to homeschool, and I said, can we borrow the textbooks that we paid for with our real estate taxes? Can we just use them and return them at the end of the school year? And they said, no. It's okay. I said, okay. And then they said, all right, we want to test your children and, see how well they're doing with these, standardized testing. And we'll put that in with our test scores for the school system. And I said, no.
No.
So they said, no, we couldn't use their books. I said, no, they couldn't have, 99 percentile test scores. That's the way it works. So the bottom line, class, is you can say no. Our sheriff
don't have
deputy...
the consent to contract with them.
Right.
They're a private corporation.
Right. Our sheriff's deputy showed up one night at the farm, and I was riding around, close to midnight, and I wanted to know what was going on. I didn't agree to let them come here, and I got to run around, so I called the sheriff during the bottom of the hour break, the next broadcast, which was a Monday morning, and I told the sheriff, do not come on my farm. Do not trespass. I told the sheriff, don't show up at my farm. Don't come here. So what I'm saying, class, is you can say no. And I've said it to the highest constitutional authority in our county. Get off my land. Don't come back.
Yep.
And you can do it. Infrastructure. Guineith, please share your thoughts with the crumbling infrastructure.
Okay. Basically, you look out there in any area of the United States, and I would put Australia on that list too, from what I can see. Our infrastructure is crumbling. And if you're not off the grid already, you'd better get off the grid, because the water supply, the sewage lines that's running on the grid, is absolutely at the point of collapse, to the point where you're actually getting sinkholes develop, and you look at what's running in underneath the sinkhole, and it's a sewage line. That's happening in the United States now, and it's happening on a massive scale, and it's mostly not getting reported. And ditto for water lines. And the electrical infrastructure is getting so, they're more interested in profit than maintaining their own system. You were pointing that out earlier. That there's not going to be a grid in 5, 10, 15 years' time, whatever. It's just not going to be there. The roads, the bridges, everything is at a point of collapse. It's going to cost $15 trillion with a T dollars to fix all the infrastructure problems in the United States, and I don't know where they're going to come up with that money. I don't think they're going to be able to come up with that money, because there's no, they can't see that there is an absolute economic benefit to fixing the roads, to fixing the sewage lines, to fixing the water supplies, to fixing the electrical grid, okay? But if you're in a rural area, you better make sure you've got a four-wheel drive, because if you haven't got a four-wheel drive, you might not be able to use the roads in a few years' time, because they're not being maintained. And I'm not talking about, the gravel roads are basically not being maintained in a lot of areas. But I'm talking
about like right in front of our farm.
The bitumen roads are not being maintained.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And you talk about
drive.
You talk about water lines. We lived in Virginia the water lines were in such a state of disrepair the town couldn't pay for it from neglect. And what they did was they said, we need a prison, a private prison. Why? Because when the prison comes to town, we'll have to dig up the roads. They'll pay for it so that the prisoners can have clean water. The solution to the decaying water lines and infrastructure was to put in a prison, because the prison would have to pay for the repairs. That's how bad it is in the United States. I was there when it happened. Gwyneth, thanks so much for being with us.
Similar here.